All right, folks. Was gonna take some time. This is first handout for scatter plots, which is kind of all your notes and explains everything. So I know a lot of people have been coming and going in and out, but thought I'd make a video, show you how to, um, you know, kind of a reminder how to use Cami, so that if you're home for an extended period of time, you can figure, you can use that, turn in stuff. Anyway, so kind of multi-purpose here as well as allow you to update your notes. Um, so scatter plots and data, student handout one. Gonna throw in a text box here. Bam. Okay, scatter plots are graphs that use points to display numerical data with two variables, or what we call bivariate data. Bi meaning two, variate standing for variable. Scatter plots can help determine if one variable has an effect on the other, or if there are overall trends, patterns, or, get my next box, associations between the variables. Look at that. Looks like I might have even spelled it correctly. Association. There we go. Okay. So, a lot of vocabulary in this first one. Key things we will point out and pay attention to. So, example here, you can see we've got the scatter plot, all these different points. Susie went to the mall, surveyed shoppers to see how many items they'd purchased and the amount of money they spent at the mall. Okay, so there's our two variables. Number one, number of items. Number two, total amount spent. Okay, how many shoppers did Susie survey? Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15, 4, 8. How about 16? Let's go with 16. Okay. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot to us right now. Um, but 16. I mean, that's a fairly good sample to survey, so it kind of gives us a pretty good idea. We come down here, okay, and does the number of items purchased seem to have an effect on the amount of money shoppers spent? Well, if we look down here at 1, 2, 3, 4 items, kind of put my cursor in the middle of that group, versus go 8, 9, 10, put my cursor in the middle of that. Okay, definitely an increase. So we're going to say yes, generally an increase in overall spending. Okay. Now, it's not foolproof. I mean, you've got what? 3 items for 140 and 7 items for what? About 110. So I mean, it's when you look at scatter plots, it's not a definitive yes, no, all cases. There's going to be some points that stand out, which we'll cover that in the next lesson. Okay, so two variables have a positive association when the variables move together, or meaning, for example, as one variable increases, the other variable, guess what, increases. Okay, so what we're saying is, as the x increases, in general, we see the y increase, which is why, gonna put a little color. As we look at this, we can kind of see this positive line going up right here. Feel like that should be a little bit bigger. Boop. There we go. So we can see that positive going on. Another way to look at that, okay, I'm going to circle this actually, is if we kind of draw kind of like a potato around it, we can see that potato heading in an upward direction. Okay. All right. Let's go to a negative association. Two variables have a negative association when the variables move in different directions. And we'll talk about that in a second. For example, as one variable increases, the other variable decreases. Okay. And that's this whole idea that we of the x increasing and the y decreasing and vice versa. That's kind of a big deal. So now when we look at this one, it's headed in a downward direction. Okay. And if you notice too, variables move together. The y increases, the x increases. Negative association because the x increases and the y decreases. Okay. So if the x and y are both increasing or both decreasing, then it's a positive association. Okay. If they're split, negative. Okay. No association. Okay. Just kind of taking a look at a big old blob. Okay. Nothing big going on there. All right. So those are our three types of associations. So describe the type of association you expect to see between the following: the hours a person studies and the number of states they visited. Well, the last time I checked, how smart you are does not determine the number of states that you go to. Okay. Versus the hours a person stays and their grade on an exam or a test. That would be a positive association because the amount of time you put in is typically going to lead to a higher grade. Okay. And then number C, the hours a person studies and the hours they spend watching TV. Really? There we go. That is a negative association. Okay. So if you look at this, person studies more, they're going to get a better grade. That's both increasing, that's both variables changing, both in a positive manner. If you go to hours a person stays an hour they spend watching TV, well, you can only spend one time doing so much, and it's going to take away from the other. So the more you study, the less you watch TV. The more you watch TV, the less you study. So there you can see those working in separate directions. Okay, back page. If a straight line can be drawn to follow the overall trend of a scatter plot, it is linear. Okay. And let me show you what we're talking about by linear. Okay. If we look up here, okay, especially this one right here, notice how I could come in and I could draw a line. Okay. Here I circled it originally. Now I'm going to draw a line through it. Okay. That would be a good example of linear. Okay. If the points of the data are close together, for example, looking, see number 4 here, that association is strong. And if the points of the data are widely spread, say more number 5 or number 2, lo and behold, we're going to call that a weak association. Okay? All right. So let's look at some examples here. Okay. Number 1, we are going to call this a positive linear and strong association. Okay. Versus the next one, which is a still positive, still linear, but it is a weak association. Okay. Go number 3. Positive, because it's still increasing, non-linear. Okay. Notice there's this curve here. Okay. So non-linear. And then finally, yeah, I'd say it's still a strong association because those dots are pretty close. Okay. Go to the next one here. What do we have? Negative, linear, strong. Okay. Number 5. This one I am going to call negative, non-linear. And I'll show you why in a second. And weak. The reason why I said non-linear on that is if I go and throw a line on this, let's say kind of from here down to here. Okay. So when I look at that, that kind of start to finish, start middle. Let me do this one. Start in the middle, end kind of in the middle. Okay. So when I look at these two, like on number 4, I got points right around that line, both sides of the line. I come to number 5, there's this section here kind of in the middle where everything kind of drops down. Okay. It's definitely more pronounced when we look, say, over here. I almost kind of went with the curve. Okay. But that would be nonlinear. All right. Now, number 6, pretty straightforward. No association. Okay. There you go. I mean, that is what it is. So, taking a look. Okay. Looking good. Looking good. All right. Let's jump down to 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. Number 7 is looking at, now we're just looking at word statements. Okay. And this is where we kind of have to use some logic per se. Okay. So on this, a person's height, person's shoe size. This is going to be a positive. Oh, I did that. Positive association. Why? Taller people have bigger feet. Okay. So, just simple explanation there. Now, taller you get, bigger feet you typically have. Now, little thing about Cami here. Oh, I kind of went down. I can resize that. Bam, right up where I want it. Okay. Come on, there you go. Now we know we're going to need a little more space. Perfect. All right. Number of letters in a person's name and a person's IQ. Okay. No association. Okay. Look, the length of a person's name has no indicator on how smart somebody is. So let's go. Yeah. No association because name doesn't affect IQ. I mean, just plain and simple. All right, last one. Now this one, you're going to look at it. Gosh, I don't know why that's slow to get in there. Okay. Number of absences a student has and a student's GPA. Okay. Now, we're inclined to say it's a negative association because, look, you got a bunch of absences, your grades are going to go down. But really, what it is if we think about it, okay, I'm going to draw this one out. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay. So this here is going to be the absences, and this is your grades. Well, if you don't have a whole lot of absences, okay, then you're probably going to get pretty decent grades because you're there for stuff. But as your absences, you get more and more. Let's say you have a whole bunch of absences. I'm going to be straightforward, folks. Those people, their grades go down. Their GPA goes down. So if we kind of fill that in, all of a sudden we see a negative association. Okay? All right. I am going to stay on the writing tool for this down here. Okay, let's go ahead and bring it all together on a couple of these. Temperature outside and total gallons of gas sold at a gas station. That actually goes down here. Trying out my writing skills. There's really no association there. Okay. And even if just kind of pay attention to the next two, by elimination, you're going to see that. All right. The size of a home and the cost of monthly utilities. Look, small home, low cost. Big home, big cost. Okay. All right. I don't suggest using this drawing tool unless you have a mouse. Just going to tell you that. It's easier just to throw in a text box. So that means the first one over here is C, where we're talking about the amount of air given the elevation. Okay. Take Everest. Everest is one of the tallest mountains in the world. Okay. You go climb that, there's oxygen balls everywhere because you need oxygen. There's not a whole lot up there. Go down by sea level, really easy to breathe, actually. It's part of the reason why a lot of athletes like to go train at a higher elevation and then go compete at a lower elevation. So, anyway, all right. So, that is all your notes for homework one. As you look at this, bivariate data, associations, the increasing and decreasing of variables. Those are key terms that we have to pay attention to. All right. Hope this helps, and shoot me an email if you got any questions.